All right. All right. So, do y'all recognize this? This is that E&M grid that the American Medical Association puts out. It was attached to last Friday's lab. It was there to go along with the video from the Contempo coding lady. Okay. So I wanted to bring this up because this grid is super helpful if you're new to E&M and you're trying to figure out your medical decision making and your level of complexity. Like if you don't know which level it's supposed to be at, this can kind of help you break it down, right? She gives you, for straightforward MDM, you have one self-limited or minor problem. For low MDM, you have two or more self-limited problems, or one chronic illness, or one acute uncomplicated illness, and so on and so forth. For each level of for each level of complexity, it gives you some criteria to work off of, right? So this is super helpful when you're figuring this out. Now, that being said, a lot of you guys are not going to be the person determining which E&M code you're going to use. Most of the time, the nurse practitioner, the doctor's assistant, medical assistant that is seeing the patients and charting everything, usually that person is going to fill out a super bill and it's going to tell you which E&M code that they want you to use. And you just basically have to verify it, see, make sure that you agree with it, and then go forward. You're not going to need this grid or need your CPT books to figure out E&M coding in your job. I've never once in almost 12 years had to look up E&M codes in the CPT book. Okay, so let's not get stuck on it. If it's something that just really isn't clicking with you, don't let it bog you down. Like, just do the best you can with it and move on, because it's not, there's so much more to this field than just this. I would hate for one thing to overwhelm you and then stop you where you are. So don't let it bog you down if it's not really clicking. Okay. Are there any questions thus far about the different levels of complexity or medical decision making? How it all flows, I guess, or no questions? Okay, that's good. So I've got here just a piece of this form, all right, but you can see she's got the codes kind of grouped: 99202, 992,112, right in that first column, one straightforward. That's because those are both, that's the lowest level of E&M outpatient and other services that there is. One's for new patient, right, and one's for established patient, and then so on and so forth. They're grouped the same way for each of the complexities. Okay, so something else I wanted to show you that is super helpful when figuring out E&M codes. You have things like this grid that the AMA puts out, but you also have your CPT manual, and there's a section before the book even starts that is these lovely little E&M tables. Now, they're not as detailed as the grid. It does not give you, one illness, two chronic illnesses, and so forth. It just gives you basically, if you're hitting, if you had the examination and it was straightforward and the time was this, then you're going to use this code, right? You're just basically plugging in your information to figure out which code you need. And there's one for new patient office stuff, Established patient, you can see that up on the top line of each of these boxes. There's one for emergency department, critical care, nursing, skilled nursing facilities, and so on and so forth, basically. Counseling, etc. Okay, there's one for each section, and you can use these as kind of a shortcut way to figure out which level of the code you need to use. Okay, so if you have your CPT manual and you can follow along with me, go ahead and find these. And I have it up there, page XXV. Oh, excuse me one moment. Sorry, child's rambunctious this afternoon. But these are a lovely, easy shortcut. Again, page XXV. And like I told y'all, I start my tabbing in my manuals on page XX, which is the section before this one, where this one is. But this is a tabbed section in my book. I have this page tabbed because that's just helpful information, right? I'd like to be able to access that anytime I need it. So,
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that. I'm sorry to interrupt. Now that I finally got my manual,
yay!
I see they put the little tabs in the front.
They have their, one of the two manuals comes with some tabs already. And you are more than welcome to use those or get your own. Or I have my own because I just wanted them labeled a certain kind of way. So if you want to start out with theirs, then that's perfect. And if they work for you, then great. And later on, if you get more familiar with things and you want to change it up, you have that option too. Like I said, there's no,
Yeah, that's something I really want to do is like try to figure out how to label the book. uh, I mean, like to section it off.
Mhm. That is definitely something we suggest. Um, definitely. In fact, I do a whole little video on tabbing your manual and how beneficial it is. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm so glad you've finally gotten your manual.
Yeah, it's just been a struggle trying to go through it now,
Yes,
but I'm
yes,
getting there.
and you will. It takes time. It takes repetition and practice for sure. But we're about to get a whole bunch of it, y'all. We're moving into module 154, which is our longest module. It's 40 days long, and it is all coding, all 40 days. So y'all are about to get all that repetition I've been talking about. It's about to hit. So page XXV, please follow along if you can. And we'll talk about the scenarios as we go through them. I've only got 5 of them, so it's not way long. And also, guys, I picked 5, and I can't remember off the top of my head if I assigned y'all the chapter exercises 11-22. But that's where I pulled these examples from. Was out straight out of the textbook, chapter 11, exercises in the 22 block at the end of the chapter. Okay. All right, so this one is a new patient is seen in the office for an earache. The history and examination are documented, and the medical decision-making complexity is straightforward. The diagnosis was acute mastoiditis. All right, so I'm gonna hop back. All right, so this is a new patient, right? So we're gonna be using the box to the left and not to the right. To the right, established patients, right? So they said the MDM was straightforward and she had an earache. They documented the history, right? History and examination documented, MDM straightforward. One acute illness. So our code is gonna be the 99202. I'm gonna hop back real quick. 99202 is this first column. Medically appropriate history and examination check, straightforward complexity check. So we're using 99202. Not that difficult, right? Not as hard as it seems. You just kind of have to break it on down. And there's something that the Contempo coding lady says, y'all, her videos are so good. If y'all want to go back and watch her stuff, watch her stuff, because I cannot explain things any better than she does. She really just does a great job of presenting the information in a way that you can understand it, I think, anyway. So if y'all want to go look up her YouTube channel, she's fantastic. But one of the things that she says is a lot of E&M coding is subjective. Different coders see things different ways. Two coders may not always agree if something, is a 99204 or a 205. One of them might think what they did was really complicated, and the other person might not think it was that complicated. So sometimes it could go either way, right? A lot of coding is subjective. It's all in how we perceive the information, is how we reflect it in the codes. Okay. So, but for that particular example, it's 99202. Does everybody see how we got that?
Yes.
And that was a simpler example, right? They told us what our MDM was. They told us it was a new patient, but not overly difficult, right? I didn't think so.
For me, I think for that assignment Friday with the ladies video, I'm not even sure what I was thinking we needed to do, but I was so overwhelmed and
It happens. Like I said, y'all, don't let it overwhelm you. And especially y'all that are new, like Asia, you haven't been here that long. Ashley, you're brand new. Um, if y'all are getting in the right ballpark, I'm generally giving you credit, because it's not always going to be exact, and some of it is subjective, so don't let it overwhelm you, and don't overthink it either. That's why I say it's great to use these little tables that they provide you with, because it makes it a lot, for me, it makes it a lot simpler to see it broken down like this. I have all my levels there and all the codes that could fit this. So I just got to figure out which one fits, right? So let's look at number 2. This one's a little bit longer. All right, an established patient seen in the office of an ENT specialist with the chief complaint of atalgia, which is funny because that's the same thing the other lady had, an earache. The physician completes a history and physical examination of the head, eyes, ears, nose, and throat. To the physician, there is a straightforward case of acute otitis media, and prescription medications are ordered. The MDM complexity is straightforward. So we've got straightforward complexity, and again, one illness. What's the big difference between these? See, this one's a 99212. What's the big difference between a 99212 and a 202?
one is a new patient and one is established.
Exactly. One's a new patient and one is established. That's the only difference in these two cases. But you see how in this one they threw a lot more information at you that wasn't, not necessarily, didn't need to be. Sometimes it's like that. That's why I say you gotta dig through it and find what you need, right? So, and what we need out when we're looking for E&Ms, we're looking for what our medical decision making, and most of the time they give it to you. We need to know what that is, and we need to just know where the patient is seen and whether they're new or established. Those are the big 3 things. New or established patient, where is that patient being seen, and what's wrong with that patient? How many, that ties into the medical decision making. The more that is wrong with them, the bigger the problem is, the higher level you're going to use. Let's take a look at number 3. An established patient is seen in the office for a blood pressure check, which is done by the physician's nurse. That's pretty easy peasy too, right? We're an established patient. So we're going to be in that that second block, and we're just there, person is just there for a blood pressure check, and it's done by the nurse. Doctor didn't even have to step in. So we're going to use the lowest level, right? Just straightforward. I'm gonna hop back real quick. Yeah. And y'all see how there is no longer a 99211? It says NA there. That's because that code is no longer used. It's now discontinued. Okay. They have deemed it unnecessary to have a level 99211 for an established patient office visit. Okay. So our lowest level established patient office visit is a 99212 that we can code. And y'all, I know there are still some offices that base their level. They're not technically supposed to. It was supposed to change in 2021. But there are some offices that still base what level they code at as to how long they spent with the patient. They simply go by the time requirement, which you're not really supposed to do, but there are some that still do, especially your older general practitioners. They kind of resist the change. All right. So any questions on that one, how we got to 99211? These next two are going to be a little bit different. Y'all are going to have to look. I don't have it pulled up as examples. Y'all are going to have to look in your CPTs for this one. And this one's a long one. Anna Rawl is seen in the emergency department complaining of a pressure in her chest, feeling that her heart is racing. After her vital signs are taken, an immediate electrocardiogram is performed, and her heart rate is found to be in excess of 160 beats per minute, with increased activity at the atrioventricular junction. After performing a comprehensive history and physical examination, the physician continues to evaluate the patient, who has been placed on continuous electrocardiographic monitoring. The emergency department physician documents the diagnosis of paroxysmal nodal tachycardia and calls a cardiologist for consultation and possible admission of the patient to the hospital. Given the uncertainty of the diagnosis and the various other possible options, the physician's decision-making is at a highly complex level. Code only the emergency department physician's services. Okay. So, ignore the fact that the code is over there. Okay, ignore that. In your CPT manual, on that same page with the office and other outpatient services, the other box there, initial observation care, subsequent initial hospital care, subsequent hospital care. None of those fit. So we're going to flip the page. All right, office or other consultations. No, not consultations. Nursing facility care. No. And then in the corner, you've got emergency department services, right? And they're set up just like your office visits are. You've got a range of codes 99281 through 99285. All right. So they said in this scenario that we're looking at a high level of complexity because, they're calling in a cardiologist and all this. They're not quite sure what they're going to do with the patient yet, but it's a pretty serious situation, right? So our history and examination, I would say that's going to be comprehensive because they've done all these tests and they're continuing to monitor her. So that's pretty comprehensive in my mind. So I would go max level there. And medical decision-making complexity, they gave it to us, it's high. So max level there. So just given those two factors, our code's gonna be that 99285. Okay. If you look down at the contributory factors, presenting problem severity. Well, I mean, it's a given it's going to be high level. You know, everything else has been high level. They're monitoring her. She may get admitted. It's a serious situation. High level of care there. High severity, immediately significant threat to life or physiological function. So yeah, definitely max level there. So it fits 99285 across the board. Any questions about that one? This one's a little more, they just give you a lot of information. It's a lot of information to sift through. But that's a lot of what the job is sifting through it. Any questions on that one? Now we got to 99285. Nope. Okay. So let's go on to number 5, and this is the last one, you guys, for today. All right, so a physician is called to the intensive care unit at the local hospital to care for Joe West, a patient in coronary crisis. The physician spends an hour at the patient's bedside stabilizing. What is going to be our CPT code? So just like with the other one, we're not at an office visit, so we're going to need to find which E&M table is going to fit where we are. So Joe is in the ICU at his local hospital. So there should be, and anytime somebody is in the ICU, that's also considered critical care. Okay, they're in danger of losing their life at any time, so they are being heavily monitored. All right, so we're going to look for critical care. Rest home, neonatal home services. There we go. Okay. That's interesting. See, even I learn something all the time. All right, so I wasn't seeing a box specifically for adult critical care, but if you look on where the emergency department box was on that next page, if you look at neonatal and pediatric critical intensive care, all right, the last column in that box, if you look at the age, it says 6 years plus. So anybody over the age of 6 years old would be those codes there, 99291, 99292. Okay. I really would have thought adults had their own column, but I guess not. All right, if you look down below that box, reporting critical care time, 34 to 74 minutes, which is half hour to an hour and 14 minutes, 99291 times 1. And then the more minutes, you're going to add to that code, right? 99291 times 1. Okay. And then 99292 times 1. And so on and so forth. And for every additional, it looks like 14 minutes or so, you're going to have an additional times 1, times 2, times how many ever there are. So for critical care, it's not so much based on the complexity. Critical care is obviously all complex. It's they're, those people are in critical condition, so it's all going to be at a high level of complexity. So the main component they're looking at there is the time component. How long did they spend in there trying to stabilize that patient or do whatever it was they were doing with that patient? And it goes in those, 14, 15-minute increments. All right, so that one is that's why I wanted to cover critical care, was because it's done just a little bit differently than the other E&Ms. All right, so did that help anyone at all?
Yes, it's a lot more clear than it was last week.
Perfect. That was the whole point. That's the whole idea. I wanted to I know there are several of y'all that reached out to me because it just wanting some extra help with it, because it's just not clicking all the way. You're having some struggles getting through the chapter exercises. If y'all are still wanting that extra time, get with me. Shoot me a text message and I'll tell you what day to reach out. We'll work something out. And you just reach out to me whenever you have time that day. But that's what the point of this was, because I had several of y'all after last week's lecture that still had plenty of questions about things. So that's why I wanted to focus on that today. Tomorrow, we are going to be reviewing for your final exam. In fact, after the chapter 11 exam, y'all have noticed we spend like 5 days doing nothing but review. You're going to be doing some looking over your PowerPoints and making study guides. And I've also put together, I think for chapter 11 and maybe chapter 10, there are chapter review worksheets that are kind of set up like an exam. There's some questions, you just answer them, submit your completed worksheet. If y'all do those, y'all go through those, y'all will have no problem with the final exam, I promise. The way I do the final exams, I take all of your other chapter exams, I pick like 5 questions from each of those, and I throw them in a final exam. It's to cover everything that we've covered in this module. So that's how we do that. I'm not going to throw anything at you that you have not been tested on previously. Okay. New students, and that is people that have started in this module. Like after day 1. I know I had one group start right before this module started, and then I had one start kind of in the middle. So unfortunately, y'all that started right at the end of 152, y'all are going to have to take the final exam for this. Those of y'all that started 2 weeks ago, y'all do not have to take this exam, and I'm pretty sure I didn't even assign it to you, so it shouldn't even pop up for you. And that's about it, y'all. We're going to start module 154 next Thursday. And that'll be that's the longest module. It's a long one, but it's going to be okay. Y'all are doing good. Y'all are doing really good. Trying to think of what else. No class work on Labor Day. I'll be putting an announcement on the stream on that. We are off that day. Yes, ma'am. My party starts on Thursday. I don't know if y'all know, but Morgan City has a Shrimp and Petroleum Festival every year for Labor Day weekend. And we get down over here. We has us a lot of fun in Morgan City that weekend, babe. And my new house where I moved to is half a block from the park where the music is and the hurricane stand is and the food trucks is. Yeah, I'm half a block from there. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend for sure. All right, any questions, concerns, anything?
I do have one question. I'm supposed to finish in January. How many modules do I have left until January?
I could not tell you right off the top of my head. We've got 154. That's 40 days long. Probably. Do you remember what module you started in, Nicole?
Oh, I started with it was resumes. We were doing resumes and career
158.
development.
You started
158.
at 158, so you probably will have 54, 55, 56, 57. And
Okay.
possibly you'll end somewhere in 58, in 158.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yep, it'll be here before you know it, I promise. Y'all, we had one graduate last week. Yay, Miss Tia. And y'all, that girl hustled through this program. She's got 8 kids.
Oh Lord.
She kept up with 8 kids in this program and did the dang thing. Okay, so I'm super proud of Tia. She's super proud of herself, as she should be.
Kudos, cause Lord,
Yes, Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. So she did the thing. We're super proud of that. And then we've got another young lady who is going to be finishing this Friday. Is going to be her last day. So, and then a whole bunch of y'all leaving me in October. A whole bunch of y'all. And I do have dates. My last 2 group of new starts, I don't have y'all's dates yet. I should have them on my next updated report. But everybody else, I've got your finished dates. And I'll be reaching out to y'all if they're in September or October in the next few days if I haven't already reached out to you. To get you focused back in for that last little push. All right, anybody else have any questions or concerns? Nope. Well then, let's see, Ms. Brandy, do you know when we'll be receiving books? Let's see, Ashley. Should be any day now. Should be any day. Y'all started not last week, but the week before, right? Or was it
Yes, ma'am. We started the week before
the week
last.
before? Should be any day now. Today's what, Wednesday? If you do
Yes,
not
ma'am.
have them by Friday, send me a text message or an email or something letting me know, because I will send out an email Friday afternoon asking them to track the shipments and see what's going on.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. No problem. All right, guys. Well, that's it. Y'all be safe and happy and healthy and blessed. And I will see y'all tomorrow at 4. And it's just going to be our class. We're reviewing for our final exam. So those of y'all are exempt. If y'all don't want to come tomorrow, you won't be missing a whole lot. So, just saying. But, all right, y'all. Have a good one.
You too.